Hey everybody, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. This time from our friends at Rock Manor Games, who've been kind enough to give us a copy to review of Brass Empire 2nd Edition. This is a revamped version of Brass Empire for 1 to 5 players. It's a deck builder, kind of a more traditional deck builder, where you'll be working against your opponents to collect a resource known as brass. Whoever has the most brass at the end of the game is the victor. Now, you may know Rock Manor Games in the way that I know them from discovering Seas of Havoc, a newer Kickstarter that they released that is fantastic. A great hybrid deck builder game that's very innovative, and so I was so excited to get a copy of Brass Empire to look at because if you know me, you know I love deck builders. I have a lot of thoughts on this title. There's a lot of fun to unpack here, so I'm excited to get this to the table and show you guys how to play Brass Empire. Welcome to the world of Brass Empire, a deck building game for 1 to 5 players where you'll take on the role of a mogul representing a specific corporation within the Brass Empire world, and you'll be competing for the most valuable resource around, brass. Every game has a set number of brass tokens as recommended by the rulebook, so you can do whatever you want, but for this case we have a 2-player game and the rulebook recommends a set-aside amount of 50 brass. And once that 50 brass is collected and divvied between the players, the game ends, and whoever has the most brass between tokens that they've collected and card value of brass within their deck is the victor. So this is a typical deck builder game. We'll call it a 5-up, 5-down deck builder where you'll always play 5 cards from your deck on your turn. You'll collect the resources on those cards in brass or labor or construction. Those are the 3 resources in the game. And then you'll spend them to activate cards, get new cards from the store added into your deck, and go attack your opponent's units or buildings, or collect brass. Go to the mines and collect brass. Now, every player starts with a deck of 10 cards, a mining platform, and 6 set-aside cards for their corporation, which we'll take a look at all of that more in detail in just a moment. But if your mining platform is up and operational, you'll be able to spend resources to collect brass or send your units to the mines to mine for brass. All of that, of course, getting you these very, very valuable brass tokens and helping advance the game trajectory. There's 2 stores within a game of Brass Empire. There is the Units and Buildings store and the Employees store. Employees kind of play like a typical deck builder where you'll play them and gain a resource or do an action on the card. The Units and Buildings will come out and play in front of you, kind of like Magic the Gathering, where you'll be building some offensive or defensive units to assault your opponents or go to the mines to collect brass. All of this, of course, pushing that overarching goal of collecting these tokens, pushing the game towards its conclusion, and having more brass than your opponent by the end. So with all that said, let's take a look at your starting hand, your corporation cards, and then a look at the store so you can get a feel for what kind of cards you might encounter in a game of Brass Empire. Alright, here we have a nice and zoomed in view of the cards in your base starter deck, your initial mining platform, as well as your corporation cards. Your starting deck is always going to be the exact same thing. Everyone starts with 7 clerks, giving you a labor each, and 3 union workers, giving you 1 construction each. You'll have a mining platform that allows you to, on your turn, spend 2 production to gain a brass. That shouldn't be your main strategy in the game, but it's a good fallback plan. This always has 2 health. If it ever takes 2 points worth of damage, it will die. And it would be able to be reconstructed for 1 construction point, putting it back onto the active side there. You'll always have 6 corporation cards. The corporations are very asymmetric and unique, but they're always going to have 3 employees, 2 buildings, and some type of specialty unit. So you'll always have some kind of a structure like this, though the abilities, effects, costs, all of that will be unique and different. In our case here, we have one of my favorite factions, the Frontier faction, Frontier Rail. They're going to have these really cool Rocket Man reference cards here that give you brass, some buildings here that actually have an attack value, which is great, and a Frontier unit that is just very strong and very lucrative. On these cards, the typical symbology to recognize is the cost is going to be in the top right. It could be a combination or a unique value of construction, labor, or both. If you pay that for this card, it will come into your deck and be available for play in the future. It will have an attack and health value potentially on the bottom right if it is a unit or a building. It'll have that value. If it has attack, you can use it to attack your opponents. If it is a unit and has attack and your mining platform is up, you can use it to go to the mine to collect its attack value worth of brass for yourself. So there's some options there. Also, any card that you purchase will have a brass value in in the bottom left. That is, again, victory points that you can tabulate at the end of the game. If you ever defeat an opponent's card and it has a brass value printed on it, you will gain that much brass as a bounty for destroying that unit at a minimum of 1. Even if you destroy a card that has no brass value printed, you still get 1 brass point as well. So there's lots of options that you'll have on your turn. You can put out units to try and protect yourself and defend and gain, general resources. You can try to be very offensive and attack your opponents. There's lots of play styles that you can lean into, and while your corporation is kind of stinted or leaning towards one particular style or another, you're not locked in. You can build all kinds of things based on the cards that you buy and add to your deck. So with that said, let's take a look at the stores and what you can add to your deck in a game of Brass Empire. Here we have the layout of a store within a game of Brass Empire. There's always going to be 2 stores, one again containing employees, those kind of playable cards from your deck, and one containing units and buildings. You'll notice here there's always 6. There will always be 6 cards in the store on both rows, and you'll notice there are gray kind of neutral basic cards, and then there are colored cards corresponding to the 5 potentially playable factions within the game of Brass Empire. Now, while I was, in the illustration earlier, the orange player, it does not mean that I just have to buy gray and orange cards. I could add a blue character to my deck, which of course gives me a little bit of a different playstyle. All of these colors kind of imply that there's a synergy or a bent towards a particular style of play that's akin to the faction that it corresponds to. But you're not locked into that. You could have a purple, building added to your deck, even if you're playing against the purple player. So there's all kinds of cards that you can have, and you'll notice they again have that typical iconography we saw before, where there is a cost on the top right, which can be quite high in this guy's case, a brass value on the bottom left, and then some type of attack and defense, potentially if it's an employee, a unit or a building, or some type of effect if it's an employee. You can see there's all kinds of things that you can lean into. Now, like, for instance, one of my favorites, the orange card here that lets you actually steal brass from your opponent. That's huge. Buildings that you can actually destroy to assault other people's targets, which can be great. There's all kinds of play styles and tricks and things that you can find. And it's worth mentioning that this deck is very large for both of these stores, and you will not go through the entirety of this deck in a single game of Brass Empire. So there's a lot of replayability here between playing different factions and different play styles and finding different cards coming up in the store. So there's a lot of replayability to unpack in this deck builder. And that is everything that you need to know to jump in and have a really good time with Brass Empire. It's not complicated. It's not a hard teach. The fun, the depth comes from the cards that come up in the store and learning how you can maximize those to your strategy and your plan. There's a lot of fun here. I love deck builders. If you've seen my stuff, you know that's one of my favorite types of games. There's a lot of fun to be had in Brass Empire. I was really excited to get the second edition to see what they'd improved from the first, because there are some complaints and issues with the first. I think they've improved on a lot of those things. Now, I have some thoughts, and I'll just kind of run through them bullet point style really quick. Rulebook. Layout's tough. I did not love the layout of this rulebook. It was confusing to me. It was very jarring and disjointed. I spent a lot of time for such a simple game hopping around trying to make sure I understood everything that I was trying to convey to you guys. Now, there's a great setup guide in the back. That's very helpful. The inside was just confusing. Now, inside, there's also rules on the solitaire that we'll call it solo mode. There is no AI. There is no card deck for that. It's just you're playing kind of against yourself, but like a dummy version of yourself, a really bad version of yourself. They've improved this a lot from the first edition, it seems like. I'll leave you guys to discover the solo mode because I'm not a solo gamer. That's not my shtick. But it doesn't seem great. It would benefit from a card. I would say this is a 1 to 5 player game. I think this is a 2 and up player game. To that point, I think this game is more fun with more players. There's more shenanigans, more interactions. I think that's where this game thrives. So is the ideal count to me is 4, but that's just me. Thoughts on the overall gameplay? I love the brass tokens. You can extend or shorten the length of the game by your preference, by how many tokens you put in. There's recommendations, but you can do whatever you want. That's really cool. The cards themselves, I like it. The art style is a little interesting. I love the pastel, the watercolored look, but some of the cards are really engaging and cool. Some of the cards are just kind of blasé. Would love to see that mellowed out a little bit more, but it's all good. It's great. The box itself, I love. Now, I got to call this out because I've called out other games before for not having this. This game has given you all the baggies you need to organize, all the space in the world that you could ever possibly want, but it's almost like too much space. This box is too big. Now, I hope there's more expansions and content coming. That would be awesome. I love a game box that's like War Chest that thinks about all of your expansions. You can put everything in the base game. That's super cool. But right now, the game is very, very empty. The box is huge. The stuff is very small. That's weird. It's jarring to me. But again, I'm hoping that's a promise that there's more to come, so I'm very excited for that. So Rock Manor, put out expansions. It'll be cool. This game is great. I love it. The cost is very approachable. It's very fun. There's a lot of replayability from the factions, from the cards that come up. I think this will be one that you'll really like if you're looking for a deck builder that scratches that kind of Magic the Gathering units out combat itch. It's a little take that. It is a little mean. There's not a lot of catch-up mechanics, but that's deck builders. That's Magic. It's very fun if you know what you're getting, what you're looking for. I hope this video kind of helped you know what the game has to offer, what you can expect in the box, and what you can expect when you get it to the table. With all that said, I want to thank you guys so much for coming to Meeple Mountain, for checking out our content. I hope you'll continue to do so. If you like what we're doing, hit the bell, subscribe, do all the things, drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from y'all. I hope that you'll continue to check out our content below. But as always, I want to thank you guys for checking us out and wish you happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.